Intrigue Media. Get noticed, get found.
Buying things online is relatively new for Intrigue. We started cutting our teeth on it about 2 summers ago when we had somebody come in and say they wanted to do all this stuff with us, and then they ended up kind of just taking the plan and running. So that's the first time we did some research into it. And from there we got another client. We were able to use the research that we did for the first client that disappeared and apply a lot of that stuff to building a website for Mimi Imports, which was one of our first big websites. So from there, we've come a long way with it, and we still have a very, very long way to go with it. It's the biggest possible thing you can get into online that we've gotten into so far, with the exception of software as a service, which could be the only thing that I could think of that would be bigger. So we're going to be talking today about why we believe in using e-commerce and kind of how to get started in that world and what you need to know for your clients and how we approach it, and then also a couple of warning flags. Yeah, so things to keep in mind when you're having the conversation. And Vanessa's actually be co-presenting. Vanessa, you ready to do the next slide? Awesome. So if you have any questions, or if you can't think of any questions, or if you haven't thought of any questions, start thinking about questions, because there's a lot. E-commerce is like an onion that you unravel from the inside, and it just gets bigger and bigger, it seems. So as we're going through this stuff, if you have any questions, feel free to put up your hand or write it down, and I'll have questions at the end. And ignore that guy, because he's a jerk. So we love e-commerce websites for 2 reasons. The first reason is because we believe that they're the future. So 10 years ago, we got the internet in our pockets, and ever since then, cell phones and internet and marketing have only embedded themselves more and more deeply in our lives every day. And I think one of the biggest pieces with e-commerce is that it gives consumers the ability to buy from you directly from their phone, anywhere in the world, right away. So with the way our culture is going, with people wanting instant satisfaction, instant gratification, and not having to wait for things, e-commerce makes a lot of sense for the culture that we live in. So that's one of the biggest reasons why we're going that direction. And there's a whole bunch of different ways to do it. We're going to get into that in a second. The second reason why we love e-commerce websites is Melanie's favorite thing in the world.
Cold hard cash.
Cold hard cash. I think that's photoshopped. James, can I get your opinion on that?
I don't know. It's pretty cool.
So he's not going to be there this fall. I guess I get a new guy. But anyway. So with e-commerce, if you use Google Analytics e-commerce tracking, very quickly you can determine where your customers are coming from online, and you can use that data to scale that initiative up. So if you're getting a lot of customers from email marketing or from online advertising, Google AdWords, Bing, if you're getting them from social media, you can see that very quickly where your money is coming from, and then you can just put more money and resources into that to see if you get more of a return. So e-commerce is really nice because it's very, very transparent, and it's one of the easiest ways to show our clients the value that we're creating. And Melanie has a bunch of really cool stories about how we've been doing that with Dirt Cheap. And I think we heard, what was the other one with Web Solar Supplies the other day?
That was organic, but yeah, you could track it through the analytics, which is pretty
Cool.
Yeah.
And he wasn't getting found organically before we started working on his website, right?
Nope.
$10,000 sale.
Amazing.
One transaction. So anyway, that's why we love e-commerce. So, oh, I don't know what I've clicked on. There's a laser. So we're going to show you how to get stacks of cash by building an e-commerce website. That's not Obama. So there's a couple things you need. The first thing is products. So I think some people have a very narrow mindset of the e-commerce world. I'm sure nobody in here, but some people have a very limited idea of what you can actually sell online. So it's more than just products, things. You can sell t-shirts, you can sell clothing, you can sell electronics, you can sell building supplies, you can sell things online for sure. But there are a bunch of other ways to do it, to go about it, and other items that you can sell online. So one of those things would be education. So we've sold tickets to courses using Eventbrite on our website, and tickets to events for years on our website. And I think that's one of the easiest ways to get into e-commerce. Another thing you can sell, depending on how you've built your website and how you structured things, you could sell webinars online, you can sell podcast subscriptions, you can sell blog subscriptions, you can sell email newsletter subscriptions, all in the vein of helping people learn more And if you use drip campaigns, you can do it automatically. So there's a bunch of different ways you can do that. We haven't delved too deep into online education, but we really believe that it's going to be one of the things that we're going to be able to take all the training and resources that we go through every day here and communicate with the world eventually in some way. So we're firing a couple bullets with it right now to figure out how we can go about doing that. So one of the other things, if you actually do want to get into the traditional e-commerce world and sell products, one of the great examples that we have is Mimi Imports. Now he's not a business to consumer business, so he sells to other businesses that sell products. He's a wholesaler. And his website is over 1,500 products. And we built that for him a couple years ago, and that was a pretty complex project. So we'll come back to that one, talk about it in a little bit. Sweet Memories is our latest and greatest e-commerce website. It's a subscription-based product that you can you buy online. You get a cupcake kit in the mail every month, and then you can bake it with your family or your friends or your kids. And I was a little skeptical about the subscription model at first because I was like, I don't subscribe to anything online. And then I realized after 10 seconds of thinking about it that I've been a Netflix customer for 4 years, I've been a Spotify customer for 2 years, and the list goes on. So online subscriptions are the future of e-commerce, and I think it's going to be one of the easiest ways that we can help a lot of our clients win. And we're going to be trying that out. There's a couple different things that we might be doing to tie software as a service and the subscription model together in the future. Pranay and Rob and Paul are looking into making the map an online website that people can use as a service, as opposed to just a document that we make. So it's pretty cool. Anyway, so that's one of the ways we're looking into building that out in the future for Intrigue. Speaking of software as a service, if you're not sure what that is, I mean, Netflix and Spotify are technically software as a service. Bright Local is one that we use all the time. Sprout Social, Hootsuite, MailChimp, AdWords, they're all software that you pay for and you use. And it's usually a subscription-based model, so that's another way you can do it online. And then finally, you get the book appointment button over there. So a lot of our clients, or not a lot of our clients, I should say, some of our clients have asked us before, and probably one or two of them might eventually be good candidates to have a system that books online where people can pay online for their appointment and then show up, and then that's the sale. So really, if we step back and look at the value of e-commerce, one of the big things that helps businesses with e-commerce is that it does the selling for them, and it gives customers what they want instantly. So that's a lot of the value, and all from the convenience of your phone, from a Google search, click on the link, and then you're on the store. So it could be really convenient for people. So the next step, and this is one of the most important ones, is creating a crystal clear scope for the project. So our first, actually I don't know about our first one, but our second e-commerce website was soccer cards, and we didn't have a clear idea of exactly what the scope of the project would be, and I didn't wait for him to get us all the content ahead of time, and I ended up going 60 hours over the budgeted time on that project because I didn't tell him that he couldn't do things, and I didn't set boundaries. And one of the most important things that we learned from that process, and from another website that we did for Dirt Cheap. Do you have any gray hair, Mike? Mike didn't have gray hair before Dirt Cheap. He probably has 2 or 3 now. We did the same thing. We didn't scope up front exactly what we were promising to the client. So whenever there were these gray areas, we thought they were just tiny little gray areas, but they ended up being giant areas that took lots of time and lots of effort for us to figure out. So again, coming back to where we are now, yesterday we had a 3-hour meeting with 5 people from one organization and 6 people from Intrigue in the room, all around the idea of figuring out exactly how we can create exactly what the Fergus Scottish Festival wants in a website online so they can sell e-commerce. We sat there for 40 minutes talking about how people purchase dance registrations and all the nuances of that and all the logic behind that, and we spent 40 minutes on what might appear to be a tiny aspect of the website, and then as we dug into it, we found out that there were more and more layers to it. So we've come a long way with how we scope these websites, and I'm sure that we still have a long way to go, but we're definitely in our best spot ever, and with our scoping process. So I'm going to talk about a couple of the little things, well, they're not little things, a couple of the things that make up the scope of an e-commerce website. So yeah, I'm going to talk about that in a second. But images, one thing to note for e-commerce websites, the best type of images are square images that have either white or transparent backgrounds. every e-commerce platform online looks better with square images, and some of them don't work well with images that aren't square. So we've got a Photoshop algorithm that we made to square off images automatically. So if there's an image that's horizontal, it'll add white space above it, or if it's vertical, it'll add white space on the sides. And we throw that on one of our computers and then come back half hour later and we have 1,000 square images. So that's one of the ways we help our clients. Copy for all the products is really important. Some people give us website databases of products with copy, and other people don't have any copy at all. So we have various solutions that we can implement to get people copy. It can get really big when you get up to 1,000 products. And we haven't actually sat there and wrote 1,000 pages of copy for an e-commerce website. Usually just a couple of blurbs. But we could do that if we needed to. Variations is the other big piece. So this could be anything from sizes to quantities, volumes, different pricing variations based on what you're buying or how much you're buying, as well as categories. So just to give you an idea, Mimi Imports, they have soccer products on their website, they have Harry Potter products, they have Guinness products, they have Doctor Who products, they have Downton Abbey products. To separate all of these products, the 1,500 products on their website, they had a very specific category structure, so people could go, okay, I want to look at Doctor Who, and okay, there's Christmas ornaments, and now I'm in Christmas ornaments, and I'm seeing all the Christmas ornament products. Or I click on soccer, I click on World Cup, and then I click on World Cup 2014, and then I'm in that category. And they had over 150 product categories for the website to put all those 1,500 products in, so it was very, very detailed. And we had to figure out all that before we could upload everything to the website. Checkout is another important piece. So how will the checkout actually work when you shop? How are you going to add stuff into your cart? Will guests be able to check out, or do you have to create an account to be logged in to be able to see the checkout section? And then with checkout, there's shipping. So is shipping calculated dynamically? Is there a weight or dimensions of products that the shipping is based off of? Is there a fixed shipping cost? Is it free shipping? When does free shipping apply? And then are there additional charges? The biggest challenge we ever had with shipping was dirt cheap. And he ships soil and aggregate and gravel to different people. And the shipping model he had was not designed to work in the e-commerce world. So it took us, between me and Mike and Chris, between me and Mike, we probably spent 20 hours on just figuring out the shipping piece. And it's probably one of those gray hairs. Mm-hmm. Definitely was for me. I got more. But we figured it out. We worked with John, and we found a solution that would work online that was slightly different than the solution that he was using, and we were able to implement it, which is pretty cool. The other thing, once you've gotten as far as figuring out the shipping, you have to pay for something, and there's a bunch of different ways you can pay for things online. There's different payment providers, like PayPal's the biggest one. You also have Interac providers like Moneris, Stripe, Square are getting bigger and bigger. The important thing is we need to know where the payment is going to go and how people are going to actually get the money to you. So PayPal is the easiest one, and it's one of the biggest ones, so there's a lot of support for it. But their percentage that they take of your transactions may not necessarily be the lowest, depending on the number of transactions you do. So it's really important to talk about this up front. And this is actually one piece we didn't touch on yesterday that we need to come back to with the Fergus Festival.
I got numbers on it.
Awesome. Cool. So and then the last piece is recurring subscriptions. So we found in our experience that if you want to have recurring subscriptions, not all platforms and all payment processors support it. So it's one of those things that if you're going to have that model on your website, you really need to keep that in mind up front when you're scoping the project. Geographic limitations is important. Some people can sell their products in only one country. So Sham, for example, can only sell Guinness products in Canada because he's the licensed Guinness provider to Canada. I don't think he's legally allowed to sell into the States. And then and Sweet Memories, for example, we just did their website, so she wants to only sell it in Canada, but she doesn't want it to be limited. So if somebody lives in the States, they can still buy it for somebody who lives in Canada. And the reason for that is because it's shipping food, she doesn't want to have to go through all the paperwork to figure out what's involved in shipping food from Canada across the border to the States. So there can be different limitations for different reasons, and with that comes currency. So one big thing that we've seen from all the businesses that we've talked to in the e-commerce world is can we accept Canadian, can we accept US dollars? We haven't really had any other currencies to worry about. With Mutluk specifically, she wanted to accept Canadian dollars on her website, and then she also wanted to accept US dollars, and she didn't want to convert the US dollars to Canadian and then accept it as Canadian. She wanted to accept the US dollars as US dollars, so that ended up being a much more complex thing and not an easy thing than we anticipated. So that's just something that we look for when we scope out these websites. And then the last piece would be looking at any existing platforms that are already online. So does somebody have a store? Are there any accounts? Are there any orders? Does any of this information need to come over and be brought into the new store? We've never had to do it to date, but it's something that potentially could happen, so we usually talk about that. So that's the scope piece. That is the biggest thing you can deal with out of any scoping that we've done so far, I think, for any of the initiatives we do. So once you've scoped it, you can get this perfect database. You're probably wondering, why is there this smiling old man looking down at this database? And I'll tell you about Dennis in a minute. E-commerce, when you have that product database I was talking about, when you built it, it has to be perfect, like literally to the exact character perfect. And if it isn't perfect, things will break every time. And that's why it was one of the main reasons why the Soccer Cards website went 60 hours over budget, is because I was sitting there uploading the spreadsheet of data and it wasn't working, products weren't being made, it wasn't finding images, and it works every time if it's perfect. So if there's stuff missing, there's no error codes that say, well, you need to fix this is in the wrong format, it just doesn't work. When we were uploading stuff to Mutluk's website, it wasn't much better, it was a little bit better using the BigCommerce platform. But it has to be perfect, and that is where the devil is, in the tiny details with e-commerce. So that's where it gets really, really tedious, and it can be very complex. I'm not sure if you had any issues like that when you were working on the Dirt Cheap website. Fair enough. I don't think you re-uploading products though, or there you go. Fair enough. So with Dirt Cheap's website, they only have like 30 or 40 products, give or take.
Well, 90.
90. Right, 30 times 30, right? So with Greenway's website, which I'll talk about in a minute, Bigelow Flooring's website, Mimi Imports, Soccer Cards, they all have thousands of products. So 1,000 plus products, all the way up to 2,000 products. So the scale of, or the room for error gets a lot bigger when you have 2,000 rows times 30 columns. So it can be really big. So that brings me to Dennis. No client has ever brought us a database that was perfect for uploading. I'd say the ones we got from most of our clients were anywhere from like 25 to 50% of what they actually needed to be. So we had to add in a whole bunch of information, modify the stuff that was there to get to where it needed to be so we could actually upload it and it would work. Dennis is he's a bit of a database nerd, and he works at Greenway. So they had an issue where people were coming into the greenhouse at Greenway and they weren't able to find the plants they were looking for. So he built a database on a computer that lived in the middle of the greenhouse, and if you were looking for a plant, you go over to the plant finder and you type in the plant you're looking for, and then it would give you information about that plant, and then it would tell you where it was in the greenhouse. So as soon as Rob caught wind of that, he had the big picture idea of bringing it onto the website and using it as a way to create unique content and also give people information they're looking for. So some of the information that's in the database includes the amount of shade needed for a plant. So if you're looking for a plant and you need to know if you've got a full sun garden or a full shade garden or somewhere in between, you can use Greenway's Plant Finder to filter down to only see the plants that work for that. It'll tell you if it tolerates pests like rabbits or deer, if it's hardy, if it'll handle dry weather, or if it needs lots of water. It'll tell you how big or small a plant will grow width-wise and height-wise, and you can filter down the whole database of thousands of plants to see what exists there with a couple drag and drop sliders. On top of that, you can search for stuff too. So that's one thing that their website has that nobody else in the area has. I don't know if I've seen that anywhere online. And it's pretty cool. So Dennis he didn't get the big picture of it. I don't know if he still gets the big picture of it. I'm not even sure if he still works at Greenway actually, but we were able to take that and put it on their website, and it really set their website apart and gave them a ton of really great original content that doesn't live anywhere else on any other greenhouse's website in this area. So his database was probably about 95% perfect, but that's because he's a database nerd, and it saved them thousands of dollars and me probably tens of hours just cleaning stuff up. So it's pretty cool what a really clean database of products can do for your business.
And for the record, with Greenway and Bigelow Flooring, they're not e-commerce sites because they can't purchase, but they are e-commerce databases.
Yeah.
And their organic traffic's like Bigelow went up like 3,000 to 4,000% in 30 days once the database went live. Greenway went up like 600-700% within the first year, like the Google Eats databases.
Yeah.
So this is a fantastic solution. So if we're talking to clients and we understand that their business model has thousands of products or thousands of options, and if we can start thinking about databases this way and thinking about our clients' businesses this way, it's a huge advantage.
Totally.
It's awesome.
So the last piece we're going to talk about is where we actually build these websites. So we're going to talk about the 3 platforms that we've used and some of the pros and cons. So the first platform we used was WooCommerce, which is a plugin for WordPress. We found it because we were working with WordPress. We've been working with WordPress forever, and that's our main platform. So it just seemed like a natural extension for us to find a store plugin that worked in WordPress. And as we got into it and learned more about it, we found out that it wasn't all shiny and that there were some areas that sucked. In WooCommerce, the core functionality of WooCommerce is really great. However, there isn't much functionality that's built into it. You have to add a lot of additional plugins to get additional features that are built into Shopify and BigCommerce and into their core. And when you get into 20, 30 plugins on a website for functionality, it can get really Band-Aid and really Mickey Moused. And you can also find that one of these plugins that you see online, they don't always do what you would expect them to do. So you have to install them and see if they'll work, and that's the only way you can really figure out if they'll work. So it can be expensive researching them if you're not able to get a refund on these plugins. So that's one thing to note about WooCommerce. The big pro of WooCommerce is that it's WordPress, so we have everything that we have at our advantage for a normal website. So our drag and drop Visual Composer editor, we have Yoast SEO, and that can be a huge thing for helping us build a beautiful e-commerce website. So examples of websites that we built in the Ken using Visual Composer that have WooCommerce would be Sweet Memories and Dirt Cheap. Those are the first 2. And and Fuso, right? That one's on its way. So then I guess we have 3 that we built that way. So we started looking into Shopify and BigCommerce early last year after going through a couple websites in WooCommerce and realizing that they didn't have a lot of the functionality that we needed built in. So these 2 are probably the biggest 2 store platforms in the industry. Shopify is Canadian, BigCommerce is American. Shopify, I think, has always been a little bit ahead of BigCommerce in terms of usership. When we looked into it last year, I looked into it to scope Mutluk's website. And based on all the needs that she had specifically for her website, BigCommerce had a little bit more of the features we needed built in. In Shopify, we still had to add in some plugins to make it work, and they were all paid plugins. None of them were free. So we ended up going with BigCommerce for her website. And one of the other things that's really important to note about BigCommerce and Shopify is, I mean, they're growing, and because they're used so widely in the e-commerce industry. I mean, the research I did a year ago probably is out of date. So we dug back into Shopify again when we were making the decision to move Weedspeak on, and Paul built the Weedspeak on new website in Shopify. So that's our first Shopify website. Sweet Kyla's website is a BigCommerce website that we're also working on, and I think Blue Water Energy's website is a Shopify website. So that's pretty much as far as we've gone into those platforms, and I know we're going to be looking into Shopify probably as a front runner for the Fergus Scottish Festival, if it'll do what we need to do with it. So one other thing that Pranay mentioned to me about Shopify is that they have a Waterloo office. So if there's any issues or if you have questions about things, you can actually go to Waterloo and meet with them. So that's something I didn't know until this week, which I thought was pretty cool. And one of the things we believe in strongly is meeting with our clients face to face. So it just seems like there's potentially some synergy there. So anyway, some of the downsides of Shopify and BigCommerce: there's no Visual Composer, so you don't have a nice drag and drop editor where you can make beautiful landing pages. You have to hard code everything, and the website platforms aren't nearly as flexible, so you're really limited to the box in the middle of the screen for what you can do on their websites, and because you have to code it all manually, it takes longer. And I found that some of the SEO elements in both of these sites, while they have pretty much everything we need to have, they're not as easily customized, and some of the things aren't as customizable, and you can't do it all in bulk usually like you can in WordPress. So WordPress is kind of like Android, and Shopify and BigCommerce are kind of like your iPhone. So you can customize the heck out of WordPress, but it'll be glitchy potentially. And iPhone has a lot more nice things that are built in, but it's a lot more limited. So I think that's pretty much it for platform things that I had to go over. So